Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I created my Dragon of the West roleplay build for Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erd Tree. This build puts players in the shoes of Iroh from the animated series Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Did I ever tell you how I got the nickname, the Dragon of the West?
I'm not interested in a lengthy anecdote, Uncle.
It's more of a demonstration, really.
This is an arcane faith build that uses dragon incantations and pyromancies to navigate the dangers of the land between. Out in the open world you'll use your pyromancies to fight most threats, and then when you encounter more challenging foes or groups, you'll buff up with Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength and your Flask of Wondrous Physic, and then nuke down enemies at the beginning of the fight using your dragon incantations for a great early advantage in battle, before swapping back to your pyromancies for a more traditional fight. The incantations I'm using for this build are Dragonfire and a Gheal's Flame to tie in with the Dragon of the West theme that we have going on here. Dragonfire can be purchased from the Church of the Dragon Communion in Lingrave. It costs 1 dragon heart and is available right from the beginning of the game as soon as you've got that heart. So you could head out to Fort Farith and kill the sleeping dragon for 5 dragon hearts, and that become available as soon as you've done that. And then a Gheal's Flame can be purchased from the Cathedral of the Dragon Communion in Caelid for 2 dragon hearts, but does require that a Gheal has been killed before this one can be purchased. And then for pyromancies, you can use pretty much whatever you'd like. If you're playing a new game, you'll have access to Catch Fire and Flame Sling as soon as you reach the Round Table Hold, and then as you progress through the game you can swap and change those out with whatever pyromancies you like. A couple of staples here though are going to be Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, so that we can increase the damage done with the damage dealing incantations. The gear that I use for the head, I'm using the Iron Castle. Iroh can frequently be seen wearing a sedge hat similar to this during his time in Ba Sing Se, and I think this is probably about as close as you can get to headwear for Iroh. To get this item you'll have to follow Yura's questline until you meet him in the mountaintop of the giants. For the torso I've opted for the White Reeds armor. This can be found in the Spirit Caller's cave in the mountaintop of the giants. It's like a cave filled with spirit snails. But the Land of Reeds armor, which is the starting armor for the samurai class, is a great choice as well here. And then I really like Lionel's gloves and greaves to help inform Iroh's large stature and give some extra defenses as well. Lionel's set can be found in the Lindell Royal Capital, just by the Lower Capital Church site of grace. The cool thing about these combination of pieces is that they give you 56 poise, which is like the second breakpoint, so you'll be able to take a little hit without getting interrupted. The weapons I'm using for this build are the Dragon Communion Seal. I have 2 here to boost the damage of the dragon incantations as much as I can, but you won't be able to get a second one until the beginning of your second playthrough. This can be obtained from Fringe Folk Heroes Grave. It's like literally the building that you walk out of when you start the game. You will need a Stone Sword key. You could choose that as your keepsake or just come back as soon as you have one. Then I'm using the Fire Knight Seal, as I'm using the Fire Serpent incantation from Shadow of the Erd Tree. But in a new game you would use the Finger Seal for its faith scaling until you can acquire the Giant Seal from the mountaintop of the giants. The talismans I'm using for this build are Fire Scorpion's Charm. This talisman raises fire damage by 12% but also increases the physical damage taken by 10%. This is going to raise the damage of every incantation that we use in this build, so this is a great choice. Then I'm using the Carrion Filigree Crest to reduce FP cost by 25%. You'll use a lot of blue playing this build, so this is going to help your flasks go a little bit further. Then I'm using Beloved Stardust to reduce the cast speed of spells. This also increases the damage you take by quite a massive 30%. I would rather that this was the Radagon icon, but I just don't have it on this build, so I'm using this instead. And finally, I'm using the Faithful's Canvas Talisman. This raises the potency of incantations by 4%, but once again, there is a better option for this, which would be the Flock's Canvas Talisman, which raises the potency of incantations by 8%. I just don't have that on this build, so I'm substituting that one out. The aura buff that we're using for this build is Golden Vow. Golden Vow increases all damage done by 15% and reduces all damage taken by 10%. This incantation can be found in the Corpse Stench Shack in Mount Gelmir. The body buff that we are using for this build is Flame Grant Me Strength. This grants a 20% bonus to physical damage and fire damage, as well as granting 5 stamina regen per second. This incantation can be found at Fort Gale. For the Flask of Wondrous Physic, I'm using the Flame Shrouding Cracketeer. This will grant a 3-minute bonus to fire damage and can be found from the minor Erd Tree in Caelid, east of the Smouldering Church. And I'm pairing that with the Cerulean Hidden Tier to eliminate FP consumption. That one is found by defeating the Ultrasated Tree Spirit in Mount Gelmir. As a side note, if you are using Cerulean Hidden Tier to buff up your dragon incantations, it could be worth using this last, as it only lasts for 15 seconds and quite often can run out by the time you've buffed up with Golden Bow Flame Grant Me Strength. The attributes I have for this build at level 222 are 60 Vigor, 35 Mind, 36 Endurance, 22 Strength, 18 Dexterity, 10 Intelligence, 60 Faith, and 60 Arcane. This build only actually requires 15 points in Endurance to be able to medium roll, wherein everything I have here. I just had more because I was playing around with weapons and I still wanted to be able to medium roll while I was doing that. Ultimately, I decided against it, but 15 points in Endurance is all you need. Strength, Dexterity, and Intelligence, you won't really need to put any points into. The only requirement we have is 8 Strength to use the Fire Knight Seal. Really what you want to focus on is getting your Vigor up to a comfortable place. Having enough mind to be able to cast some spells, and then Faith and Arcane are going to be your damage stats, but we'll get a lot of our damage from upgrading the seals as well, so Vigor and Mind are going to be your priorities here. So if you were playing this build at level 150, a more appropriate stat spread might look something like this. So we have 60 Vigor, 35 Mind, 15 Endurance, 10 Strength, 10 Dexterity, 10 Intelligence, 45 Faith, and 45 Arcane. Well guys, that's everything I have to share on my Dragon of the West roleplay build for Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erd Tree. If you liked the video, do the thing. Peace.